Hello, everyone. Welcome to another fantastic virtual tasting with Becker Vineyards. Tonight, we have some fabulous panelists, guests to hang out and speak with you. We also are tasting through some really fabulous wines. These are the wines that went out to our Red Premier Wine Club in the October shipment. So we have our 2018 Culinaria Red Blend. We have the 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon Reserve from the Canada Family Vineyard. And then we also have our brand new vintage 2018 of the Petite Syrah Reserve. So these are some fantastic red wines to taste through this evening. And we, of course, have our winemaker, Jon Leahy, with us. We also have Dr. Joseph Becker with us. And I'm going to stay on, as well as Kaylyn Hall is going to stay on with us this evening as well. We've been told that folks appreciate the female perspective on these virtual tastings. We're going to stay on for the evening. I'll turn it over to Jon to get everybody started. Cheers, you guys.
Cheers.
I think we just need to jump right into drinking. Well, Joe, why don't you open us up with a few words, sir?
Sure. Just it's another wonderful night to spend with everybody. Knowing that we are unfortunately in the middle of a third spike in this horrible virus, but hopefully some hope around the corner, some hope with the vaccine, some hope with our treatments, and as always, we remember everybody out there who's fighting this on the front line, our healthcare professionals, our teachers, and as always, I have to say on a personal note, I appreciate everything that my own child's school at Keystone in San Antonio has done a wonderful job with this. And so just a cheers, and I hope that we can give everybody just a few minutes of break, or just a few minutes of doing what wine does best, which is bringing wonderful people together and inducing wonderful conversation.
Here.
I will cheers to that.
Cheers.
So cheers. So for everybody this evening, we're starting off with the Culinaria. Then we're going to go to the Cabernet Sauvignon, and then finish with the Petite Syrah. So that is the order that we will attempt this wonderful lineup in. Notice we've had a couple of repeats in this, but it's a very interesting pairing. So Rebecca,
yes,
Kaylyn, I want you, first of all, everybody take a swirl, a sniff, and a taste. But I want to talk about the nose on the Culinaria first. Good Lord. I just love the way this wine smells. It just keeps going and going.
There are so many different notes to it. Every time you smell and you taste, you're getting something additional, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I want to shout out to Gary Clark. He joined us again this week.
Oh.
Gary's comments were absent for several weeks. I don't know why. Might have been me blocking him. No, I'm kidding, Gary.
Gary, we would not let him do that to you.
Yeah, right. He got a couple of good zingers in last week. I needed to get one in this week.
There you go.
So what?
Yep. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask for impressions. What?
Well, I think it's always just worth, as we have said before, just remember this wine was originally created for the Culinaria Food and Wine Festival in San Antonio. And so the way I like to look at this wine is, yes, originally it was what the Cheval Noir is now. It was originally an inspiration from the Cheval Blanc blend, the classic Cab Franc Merlot blend. But I think what it has evolved into is if you look at the grapes that are in this wine, I think it's a pretty cool representation, as I've said before, of all the amazing grapes that we can grow in Texas and that we can grow well. And I think it's sort of the same thing with the Food and Wine Festival. Having grown up in San Antonio, the way the culinary scene has evolved in San Antonio is amazing. So it's always been sort of a complement to that. And I know we'll talk a little about the blend in a second, but that's just sort of the backdrop for how we think about this wine.
Yeah, and I really did enjoy it because we had this wine on earlier in the year,
right,
last spring and we had Ginger joined us for that, and the chef, and his name's escaping me. He's going to yell at me the next.
John Brandt or Jason Beatty.
Jason was on, and it's funny because I don't get to see or talk with him very often, except maybe at the Culinaria, and I think once or twice outside of there. But it's always fun to get their perspective, and I really enjoyed that. And it really did drive home, what it is that Culinaria does and why we're particularly proud of being able to make this wine for that event. So I know I'm very, very, I'm always excited every year for it. So guys, Kaylyn, bringing back the crimped hair, I see. Well, I think they're frozen. Oh, doggone it.
They are frozen, darn it.
All sorts of shades of green. Yeah. No, and don't worry. I think she'll get back at me. So
here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
That was very.
Yeah, that was close,
there.
Kaylyn.
I know. I was worried it booted all of y'all.
No, we're just having fun. Waiting for Gary to get back at me for my earlier comment. But in the meantime, I've noticed a few folks that keep joining us, and I never shout out to them. One, Charles Gage. Charles, shout out to you, buddy. Thanks for joining us. And cheers. And I haven't seen Angela's name pop up here yet, so if she's not on tonight, I'm going to be sad. Yeah. But anyway, so what do you guys think of the nose? Kaylyn, you go first, and then Rebecca. What about?
It's beautiful. I get lovely fruit components to it, but there's also like a hint of herbaceousness. There's a hint of earthy tones to it, which is something that I kind of anticipate out of Culinaria. Is just a culmination of all of the things because it is usually such a massive blend of so many different varietals. For me, this is just a nose that keeps going. And the same thing within the palate. It's hard to pinpoint specifics because there are so many different characteristics that each time I sip, I get something new.
Mm-hmm. Rebecca, what do you like about the nose?
Well, I agree. It has, like we both said, it has so many layers to it. I get some fruit up front. I get some of that sort of earthiness or almost like a mustiness that I really enjoy. Mm-hmm. And then I almost get a sense of a little bit of licorice hidden in there somewhere on the nose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that licorice, I could see what you're saying about that. That to me, anytime I start to smell that licorice edge, I always think of like anise and tarragon or really deep lavender. The tarragon and lavender being in the same family, but and please, I'm gonna now get a bunch of emails about square-stemmed herbs and everything. But the last time what?
I was just gonna say I get a very, very nice violet hint.
Yeah,
on the nose.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder, because I get that violet every once in a while from the Barbera by itself, but I wonder what has been accentuated or muted in order for that to come out so much. Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm just absolutely in love with the nose of this wine. So Joe, when was the first year? Do you remember, or approximate the first year that Becker made the Culinaria blend?
Oh gosh, I'd have to say it's been at least 15 years. Maybe 06, 07, somewhere in there, I think, because it was, and it may have been a little bit later than that. Well, because it was originally the New World Wine and Food Festival. And then they changed the name to Culinaria, and I think it was maybe a year or two after that. So somewhere in that late 07, 08 time, I would guess.
Okay. All right. So it's probably about the same time you all were just started with Brenda Canada too. Then.
I think that's right. And I wanted to, when we get to if you don't mind, I wanted to talk about, because this wine has some of my favorite grapes in it, particularly the Zinfandel.
Oh yeah.
And go ahead.
Oh no, I'm grabbing the bottle behind me. I forgot to print out the piece of paper with everything on it, so I have to cheat sheet. But I've got the basics down here. I have my tech notes in front of me, which takes a minute to interpret because nobody wants to know exactly why I ran 3 different TA or pH tests in a 24-hour period. But the as far as the blend goes, yeah. So that go ahead. We can
so this was an interesting conversation. We did a tasting with a local chef recently with this particular Culinaria, and Italian chef, and knowing that Zinfandel is also been found to be the Italian grape Primitivo, and that this was Zinfandel as it is in its American form is thought to have been brought into the United States, you know, kind of mid 19th century, you know, and that perhaps it was brought from Italian clippings, as I understand it, by a guy, an American, who was bringing him over from Vienna, and that maybe that the name had gotten confused, the Primitivo name had gotten confused with another wine that was present at that time in Vienna, where he was getting these, which was Zierfandler, if I can pronounce it, and then it somehow became Zinfandel, and then it was rediscovered to be the Primitivo grape. And one of the questions the chef was asking is the grapes, and I don't know if we know this, but the clone of this Zinfandel in this grape, if we know that, if it is an Italian clone or if it is a California clone, I doubt we'd know that, but that was an interesting question that I'd heard asked recently.
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, Jet knows, and I thought he said it was a California clone, and I'm fully willing to be corrected about it, and I'm sure
Okay.
Mr. Wilmoth will do so if I am wrong. He does it in a very gentle way. He'll always start off with, well.
Because I was remembering too that, you know, you were asking about, you know, when did we start making the Culinaria, and a couple of years before that, we used to actually make a varietal Zinfandel that we bottled that always did pretty well. And I think, unfortunately, it's hard to find Zinfandel in our state as much. Hint, 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 Jet. But it's one of my favorite grapes.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure he's willing to sell it to you. Yeah, Zinfandel. So it was my understanding that Captain Hazarthy brought the first cuttings in. So and then it would have been latter part of the 19th century, if I remember correctly. But he's was he Romanian? Because there's a Hazarthy winery outside of Budapest.
Okay.
And I don't know if I think it's connected, the same family, direct connected. But anyway, that was could have been just a common legend with no basis in reality.
Sure.
But, you know, I mean, it's grown all over well, you know, and I'm not the first person to ever make it up on the fly either. So, you know, I have been known to embellish things from time to time because
Rebecca, Kaylyn, Jon is like the internet. Everything he says is true, right?
Exactly. You know, I just said there was a period of time in my life where I would tell some pretty big whoppers, people would believe them, but when I told them the truth, they'd accuse me of lying. So, what kind of reinforcement is that? No, but Zinfandel, Joe, back to your point about you know, being the genetic. I don't know if it's exactly the same as Primitivo, but they've got to be brother and sister at least.
I thought that there was a study at UC Davis that identified.
They did, but it wasn't the same genetic percentage has been applied to human beings, we could still go to maternity or paternity court.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
But yeah, I think Primitivo and Zinfandel are, if not the same, some of it may be to the cultivars here in the U.S. and how they've been propagated and have grown slightly different. So they're not identical as far as flavor profile, but pretty damn close.
Okay.
And Primitivo is very rich, a very, very rich wine. And what I love about American Zinfandels are they run the gamut from a medium body to this incredibly brambly, over the top, fruit forward, in your face tannic bomb. I mean, they have everything in between. And that's what makes Zinfandel so much fun. That's one of this blend.
And I know, and I'm sorry. I love Zinfandel, and I you know, I always feel like, is it, you know, it's like we hear a lot about, particularly the Dry Creek Zinfandel. You know, because they have such a hot, you know, hotter climate there. I would think that they would produce a Zinfandel with a similar profile to what we grow here. But I haven't tasted any of theirs in a long time.
Well, you know, I think that maybe we need a field trip to go up to, we'll start in the Russian River Valley, and then we need to drive up. We'll go to West Side Road. We'll go up in through the Dry Creek, and then the West Dry Creek, which is much hotter. I think we need to spend 4 or 5 days out there doing that.
I'm all for it.
Okay.
Yep,
no argument.
Done. Sign me up.
I think we should make it a wine club event, Rebecca.
Yay, I do too.
Becker Wine Club discovers Zinfandel. It could be a whole discovery series.
Okay.
Becker Wine Club discovers Chilean wines.
I like that idea.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's get to the flavor profile here before we dissect. And I like this too, because I'm glad you started with the Zinfandel, Joe, because I really want to go in a little more in depth on a couple of these varietals. I think we kind of skimmed over a few months ago when we had this the last time.
Right.
So Rebecca, I'm going to lead with you first. Flavors. Yes, flavors. Even if you whisper on the internet, people can still hear you.
One of the things that strikes me about this wine is that it does have a lot of fruit up front on the palate as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely, young, which I think is why that fruit is so prevalent right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it has so much on the mid palate and the finish that I'm really looking forward to seeing how this wine ages, because I think it's just going to be absolutely beautiful as it continues to age. I definitely get some, not just the fruit up front, but on the finish, there's a nice sort of medium tannins. It's not super heavy. It's not really in your face, but there's enough of that tannin toward the end of the mid palate and on the finish that I think it really provides it with a really great structure, and has a really nice mouthfeel on the finish too.
Kaylyn, you're not allowed to use the word structure, mouth finish, or tannin. So what do you get? No.
I'll just use that one. We're safe. We're secured there. No, of course, up front, I do get quite a bit of fruit, like lovely, like red raspberry and all these beautiful things. But in the mid palate, I would say that there's some hint that I can't quite distinguish whether it is outright pepper or brown spice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy with either or, and it's beautiful either way. But I'm just looking forward to taking home a bottle of this. I need to purchase a bottle so I can bring it home and eat it with some, or drink it with some food. Eat it with some dinner. It's,
Well, you are having soup for dinner, so you eat the wine and drink the soup.
Eat the wine and drink this.
Everything balance.
So Joe, what are you getting flavor profile wise, sir?
Well, first, let me just share the stroke of genius that I just had, and that is Kaylyn and Rebecca. I think you guys need a mute button, like in the debates for Jon. Like if it's just like
I have
you've
one.
gone on too long. You just,
one.
I can mute him at any time. You just give me a signal, we'll work it out. Mute it.
Right, right.
I got a signal for you.
No, whenever I first try this wine, that the raspberry note on the front palate just really hits you, and it's such a, Jon, as you would say, it's such a full wine, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way through, and it's got and then it's got a little bit of a subtle plum note too on the finish that I love. I wonder if that's a little bit of the Barbera coming through.
I think so. Well, and it also has the Mourvèdre.
And the Mourvèdre, yeah.
So I got a question here from, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, a Robert Becker. I don't know who that guy is. So, yeah, exactly. So Bobby Becker writes, no, he's gonna break. Robert, yeah, I know. With words too, words that I don't understand. Yeah, how do you control the amount of tannins? That's a good question. What I do is I take it into the absolute coldest environment I possibly can, open the bottle and drink it. The tannins won't bother you.
Wait, Rebecca, get the mute button ready.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. Actually, a very good question, honestly. If you have varietals that are very strong in tannins like Cab or Zin or Petite Syrah, and you need to control some of them, that's where the cold soak comes in, very handy, pre-fermentation. The other thing that helps is post-fermentation extended maceration, which is a wonderful sing-songy way of saying, let it sit on the skins for a while after it's done fermenting before pressing. So.
And could you talk about how you do a cold soak? Because I think that people like to hear that.
Yeah, well, and it belies what a cold soak really is. It's neither cold, but it is soaking. The colder you get those grapes, the longer you have to soak to get the same uptick in enzymatic activity at a warmer temperature, shorter days. So ideally, if you could keep it in an oxygen-free environment at about 55 to 58 degrees for about 4 or 5 days, before you start primary fermentation and control the wild ferments from Calecra and a few of the other little beasties that exist in the grape. Then you get this beautiful extraction of color. Tannins start growing longer chain. So back to the tannins, and I'll finish that, Robert. I haven't finished. I know he knows how to do this. He's just asking a great question. So the tannins, when they're young and underdeveloped, green or otherwise, they're in very short chains. Okay, so those proteins need to link together and form longer and longer chains. The longer the chain that forms, the rounder in the mouth and the less drying effect it has on your palate. A short chain or green or seed tannin generally feels like the enamel's going to come off your teeth. It's very dry and up front, or very grippy, not gritty, but grippy. It dries your tongue out. If they're longer and more developed or muted, then all that does is it actually creates body in the mouth, and it creates a pathway for those flavors to go from the front to the back of the palate. So, so cold soaking is a very wonderful way of being able to do that. The other way we like to do it is with time, and you cannot replicate that in Mother Nature. I know a lot of people have used the diffused oxygen method and stuff, but one of the things that we like to do instead of micro-ox is allow Mother Nature to do it in a barrel over a 2-year period of time. And that's probably the best way. Think about slow cooking, or doing something, a slow ferment, which is a wonderful way of allowing all those flavors and nuances to develop. Okay, that's as long as I've talked ever. So we need to go on.
I can mute you real quick.
Thank you. Somebody's got to hit the reset button. Is located right here. You just got to pop it.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Right? So, Jon, I know we've talked about this before. I really enjoy this Culinaria in particular because it is a blend of so many different varietals. And this one, Joe kind of touched on this earlier, in that it's such a great representation of the grapes that we can grow across the whole state. This isn't all from the high plains. It's not all from the hill country. The varietals that we have in here are from both of those large growing regions. And I think it definitely is a great representation of Texas wine as a whole. And that's one of the things that I just really love to have about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, making this blend is absolutely fantastic. Jet just signed on to Facebook. That's why I was looking over there real quick, and I'm sorry I wasn't ignoring you. So Jet, if you can hear me, if you're within the sound range of my voice. So what clonal varietal is this in that you have? Is it the California clone, or is it a Primitivo clone? I'm betting California, but I'm probably wrong. So. Because Jet would never put anything.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, right. Shall we get here? Okay, so I got another question here from Kent. Asks, how much does the character of the Culinaria change from year to year?
It changes a lot from year to year.
The blends are never the same. It's
they're drastically different. But what I love about them is they all have the same sort of I don't know, they all taste dramatically different, but they all sort of stay within this sort of realm of being this really great medium to full bodied red blend that pairs really well with food. And I don't know how you're able to do so many dramatically different blends that all sort of fall in that area. And it's kind of amazing to me, but.
I bought a kit. It comes in a 5-gallon bucket. And
Joe's gonna make me mute you again.
Absolutely, he is. Well, actually, the fun part about doing the Culinaria blend is that we have a lot of different single varietal wine lots that don't normally get blended together, don't normally live together. And one of the things, the biggest challenge of actually making the blend is keeping in mind the extreme cross section of delightful food available in San Antonio and the San Antonio culinaria scene, the culinary scene, excuse me, which is incredible. And if you're not familiar with San Antonio, if you haven't been, it's worth going down, take a weekend or a week. If you're looking for a short escape, and we're just an hour drive outside of San Antonio, so you can come visit us too. But going to San Antonio is an absolute delight. there are so many funky, great little places to go and eat. There's so many good things to do, but the culinary scene in San Antonio is top notch. And I think in the next few years, you're going to see it listed in just about everybody's to-do list on culinary adventures. But anyway, making a wine for that has been the challenge, because we've got everything from very spicy to very sweet, savory. We've got everything in between, you know, from Babacao to, you know, Asian fusion, to Caribbean, you know, to, you know, what we like to call as traditional Tex-Mex, and then to Northern Mexican as well as Southern Mexican food influences. You know, one of my favorite, Johnny Hernandez, these flavors are just screaming at me all the time, and trying to make a wine to complement that is enough to make my hair fall out.
And what doesn't fall out turns white.
And it's shaved off by a mad woman with a razor.
Well, John, just another thing here. I mean, as you always say, and I apologize, I got cut off for a second, but you know, you don't taste the heat. You don't taste any. You don't really get a hit by the alcohol in this wine.
Right.
Also.
Yeah, it's 14.9% by volume.
Yeah, right.
It's just shy of 15%. So yeah, it's no doing shooters. Look at Rebecca. That's a great face. No, yeah, you can't taste the heat. It's pretty well balanced. It will come out. My wine is probably right now at about 65. And as it warms up, the alcohol, of course, is going to volatilize quicker, and you're going to get a little hit in the nose. But that's why I advocate serving white and red wine at the same temperature. I think it does brilliantly well. So 55 to 60 degrees, anywhere in between there is an ideal serving temperature. And by the time you get through the first glass, it's of course warm. Don't chug the glass, take your time and enjoy it. But, you know, keep the wine in that environment so the next glass is the same starting temperature on there.
So, John, if we don't have any other questions, particularly about the Culinaria, I think we should move on to the Canada Cab if everybody's ready.
It's everybody's favorite, is it?
Well, it's my mom's favorite.
I'll move on to it because
my mom actually hadn't done, she hadn't ordered the wines for the virtuals for a while, but of course she watches every week.
Right.
And she called me last week and said, so I want to go ahead and order week 31. And I went, okay, no problem. And as we're talking, it dawns on her that I'm not actually at the winery. She called my cell phone, but she thought I was at the winery working. Right. And I was like, okay, I'll make sure we get it ordered for you. She goes, oh, it's your day off, isn't it? I'm sorry, I didn't call it, like make you put in an order. I'm like, Mom, it's fine. I can actually do it on my phone.
Right? Yeah.
It's not a big deal. Yeah. But I know, she said, I saw those wines in it and I just had to have them. The Canada Cab is always my mom's favorite, hands down, and the Culinaria as well. Those are two of her absolute, she just loves those every single year. So Mom's got these too.
Yeah, my mom.
Cheers to your mother, Rebecca.
Yeah, cheers your mom, because she's an awesome lady. So,
yes, and she's got an awesome daughter and an awesome taste in wine. So cheers.
She's definitely an awesome lady. No.
And mute.
You know, my mom always just used Irish guilt. She'd start up with, you need to do this because I was in the hospital for 16 hours. Anyway, real quick before we go to the Canada Cab, I just want to give the percentages on the blend here. So it was 20% Zinfandel, 20% Dolcetto, 15% Barbera, 15% Mourvèdre, 15% Cab, and 15% Tannat.
Just crazy how much is in that.
Right? It worked out very well, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody grab your glass of this beautiful Canada Cabernet Sauvignon from the Canada Family Vineyards in Plains, Texas. And a shout out to some of our favorite people up there.
Cheers.
High Plains. Not just one grower in particular, Jet. Yeah. But yeah, a shout out to Brenda and Dwayne and a hard job they do every year. And we get to enjoy the fruits of their labor, literally. So let's give it
to all the rattlesnakes that have tried to mess with Mrs. Canada.
Yeah, I am surprised they're even still around.
Right? I mean, you would think they all got the word and just ran after that last
I'm
altercation.
telling you right now, her real name is Mother Nature.
So speaking of Mother Nature, John, they got snow and ice up there this week. And I know last year that was an issue,
Mhm.
but I heard somebody say that it's not kind of the same this year.
No.
So can you please explain to me how it's different?
It's different because Brenda Canada likes to have a white Halloween, with snow and ice. So I'm just not arguing.
Mute
So,
it again.
Mute button.
well, first of all, we were not harvesting nearly as late this year.
Okay.
Now I'm not going to discount and say it wasn't an issue at all this year. The verdicts are still out. I'm still waiting to hear back from our growers about that, but it did drop down to 22, I think, overnight, a couple of nights ago. So the advantage this year over last year is, one, our harvest was over by the end of September instead of the end of October.
Okay.
So the vines had a full month. The inclement weather moved in, not rapidly, but in stages. So some of that may have been allowed to go dormant, may have stored enough, may have been dry enough in the vines that it did not have a hard freeze. So if the vines are dry enough at dormancy, then they're protected. But we'll see. We'll see. I did not hear any screaming, wailing, or gnashing of teeth the next day like we did last year.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure we're ahead of the game.
Yeah, so just so everybody knows, we've had the weather in Texas is just makes grape growing here just so much fun. And we had the snow in May of 2013. And so people understand it, last year, and I know we've mentioned it on prior tastings, it was 12 degrees on Halloween in the high plains a year ago.
Yeah, the 23rd, with the first freeze was on the 23rd of October, and it was 21 or 22 degrees. Yeah, so and it was, and Halloween, it was just bitter cold.
And unfortunately, we saw just tremendous loss of buds as the grapes were awakening in the spring.
Yeah, so to give everybody an idea, like we were expecting Mas Menos 1,600 tons, right around between 15 and 1,600 tons this year, and we actually ended up harvesting about 450. So that's how much we lost statewide. So yeah, it was not a fun year. No one had a fun year. The growers did not, certainly. The wineries certainly did not enjoy a fun year. What we did get was very, very good fruit. We've got some really exceptional wines as we've been tasting them early as they're coming out of their malactic fermentations now. We're just starting to see the end of secondary fermentation, and I'm very, very pleased with the quality. Hill country really shone this year too, which was really nice. And somebody just asked if Stonewall had freezing temperatures last night. No, we did not. It got down to 35 degrees last night. With the wind and the light mist of rain, it felt like it was 10 below zero, but I exaggerate.
For that part.
But yeah, perfect chilly weather. No pun intended. So.
Well, and speaking of funky weather years, I have to say this of course brings us to 2017, which with the Canada Cab, which I know we've talked about many times. This was just to briefly summarize again, this was the year that before Hurricane Harvey decimated Houston, it had shoved that high pressure out over the high plains, and we always feel guilty talking about this because of how awful it was for the rest of the state. But it gave our growers in West Texas just this long, cool, beautiful growing season. Very cool nights, long days. And so I feel like every time I smell the Canada Cab or taste it, it just seems to get better and better in the bottle.
The 2017 is by far the best vintage that I've dealt with since moving here. Hands down, the 2017, as good as 2012 was, as wonderful as I thought the 15s were, 17 was that much better. But we've been very fortunate, for the years that we've had good years in a row, starting with the 15. We had 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. That's a lot of multiple years with good harvests in a row. And then we get gobsmacked in 2020. Go figure.
The whole planet did. So
I have a theory about that. So you know how they said
Hold on, let me get the mute button ready.
Yes.
you know how they said back in 2012 that was the end of the Mayan calendar, but nobody took into account for the Gregorian or the Julian calendar changes. This year was the actual end, so I'm pretty sure that's why.
So anyway, the Canada family cab on the nose. It's really
Thank
fantastic.
you. Yes, thank you, Rebecca.
I love it. One of the things, honestly, if I'm just going to make that really awkward segue, is that this has a lot of the vegetal on the nose and on the palate that I always love and I always tend to get from Miss Canada's fruit, because it has that sort of very much like a Cabernet Franc. It has those same sort of hints to it that I really, really love. And this one is no different. It definitely has that this year. And
Are you a Canada Cab enthusiast?
I'm a Cabernet Franc enthusiast, and I am definitely all of our Cabernets. I'm enthusiastic about them, but Cabernet Franc in particular, yes.
Miss Kaylyn, what do you get on the nose?
Well, I always get bright red fruit on the nose, which I think is just absolutely lovely and beautiful. And like Rebecca was mentioning, that hint of like pyrazine content, I think it's just really spectacular and beautiful, and something that I find very interesting. And it makes it easy for me to distinguish which cab is which. If you pour two side by side with our Wilmouth cab or with the Canada cab, I can off the nose tell you which one it is.
I want you to take a note from her, Rebecca. Pyrazine.
No, I was just going to say, did you see how happy you made John when he used the word pyrazine?
I tried.
He got so excited. I refuse to use it because it makes me too happy.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Can't keep my ego in check, so I got to keep my happiness down.
Yep. Any way I can just kind of keep you in check a little bit.
Exactly.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I try, Joe. Joe, what do you get on this one?
You know, I think I totally agree with you guys that you know, you get this wonderful red fruit notes. I get a little bit of I still get a little bit of that kind of coffee or fresh coffee on the nose.
Yeah.
I hope we're not picking up a screaming child in the background.
Oh,
Good.
don't pick
Okay.
them up. Let them scream. No.
No, but I get the red fruit notes that you all describe, and then I get a little bit of that fresh coffee note on the nose.
Yeah.
So Joe, is it like stray cats? If you constantly feed little kids, they keep wanting to come back in the house and stuff. And, like,
Something like that.
yeah. I think what I really do enjoy about the Canada cab, and I'm always going to draw in the Wilmouth cab too, because they side by side, they're Cabernets of exceptional quality. The Canada, the depth that the Canada gets, it comes out of the start gate. It's very fruit forward the first couple of years, and then that minerality starts coming out at you. And those, as Trish said, those methoxylpyrazines, thank you for the correct word, when they really mellow down, that's when you start getting that subtlety. And I think cab always has to have that little bit of vegetal or a little bit of bell pepper in there. For Cabernet, that's so very important. In Cabernet Franc, it has it in a flush amount, but in this cab, there's just enough to really enjoy it along with that fruit undertone. That's one of my favorite things about this.
I always think about as I guess we get to the palate that some of Jet's older cabs are very similar to sort of the older Bordeaux, and I feel like Mrs. Canada's cabs start to be a little bit like a beautiful Russian River Valley cab, just a different flavor profile, but both beautiful in their own unique way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are absolutely.
I think it's really interesting and unique for Becker Vineyards that we have these growers that grow exceptional fruit. They're not far apart. They're only about 40 miles from each other,
Right.
these vineyards. And yet the fruit is so distinctive and so fantastic. You know, that year that we won, a couple years ago, we won the 4 double golds. 2 of those, one was the 2015 Canada cab and another one was the 2015 Wilmouth cab. So, I mean, these cabs are both exceptional, but they're drastically different enough to be standalone exceptional cabs that have a different flavor profile, but are both just wonderful examples of Cabernet in their own. And I think that that's not only a testament to our growers, clearly, but also a testament to Becker Vineyards that we're able to take those grapes and not screw them up, like Jon says, it's his job, and let them be just, you know, this exceptional fruit and this exceptional kind of representation of these areas in Texas. I think it's really remarkable that we're able to do that with two distinctive flavor profiles for Cabernet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree. You know, what I always find fun is the fact that Brenda Canada was Jet Wilmot's high school teacher. I was like, I wonder when he was planting the vineyard, if she showed up with a ruler in hand to make sure he was doing it right.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Well, and I always tell the story that at Twigga this year at the Grape Growers Dinner, at the end of we were all, you know, making some speeches, and I said, Mrs. Ken, I have to ask you, what's the hardest thing you've done? Overcome breast cancer, grow grapes in Texas, or teach Jet? And like, without a pause, it was teach Jet, hands down.
Poor Jet.
That's great.
You know, oh, that's funny as all get out right there.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, I love it. Well, this cab is not 100% pure cab. There's
What do we have in this?
Yeah, we have just a tiny amount of Merlot. So just a little bit to flush out the mid palate there. So when I was going through making these blends, you know, I will always say blends, and you can save yourselves comments about 100% and things like that. Even 100% pure cab and bottle, which we've done, is also a blend, because I don't age it in the same oak or the same profile or use the same yeast on the same, even though if it came in together on the same day, I will split it up. So I will take one lot and make multiple lots of Cabernet out of that, age it separately, and then blend it back together to make that cab, and hence blend. I don't know where we got off track, but in the last few years, it seems that people hear the word blend and they think something less than pure or negative. And when it comes to winemaking, blending is the art of winemaking. So that's why I use that term, just in case you're curious.
Well, and many of the great French vineyards are planted as a certain percentage Cab, certain percentage Cab Franc, and that's, you know, if you look at Bordeaux, you know, a lot of those labels, that's this, you know, that's they're all blends. I mean, they're all blends of their vineyard, how their vineyard's planted.
Well, I had an interesting conversation a number of years ago from a person who I interviewed with. This is 15, 18 years ago. The person stated that they, you know, we're only going to do 100%. If it's Merlot, it's 100%. If it's Cab, it's 100%. We don't do blends. It's 100% or nothing. And I was like, well, what's your favorite wine? And he goes, I'll tell you right now, we are going to make wine better than Chateau Margaux. Margaux's great wine. I was like, okay, 100% of what, buddy? So, and Jet Wilmot just chimed in and wanted to know where that Merlot was from. Yes, Jet, it was a little bit of your Merlot that we put in with this Cabernet. Absolutely. So, but that's okay. We had to put a whole lot of the Canada Cab in with yours, Jet. No, I'm kidding. His cab was also, I believe, the 17, just because we've talked about it, was his cab and his Merlot. It was just a touch of it. That Merlot, I love Merlot for what it does. Merlot is such a beautiful grape. Anyway, this Cabernet, do we have any other questions or any other comments from our panelists this evening about the Cabernet? Kaylyn?
Quick thing. I think that a lot of people that I come in contact with here at the winery, like just guests in general, think that because something is blended, it means that there was something wrong with it as a 100% standalone. cab or what have you, or that blends are somehow just oh, well, we had these 3 barrels left over, so we put them all together and made this thing. I hope you like it. And I think it's important to mention that that's not how it comes together. It's blind tasting with you guys, and it's about making the best wine possible. And sometimes that means blending in a little bit of something to help the mid palate, or soften up the finish or make it a little bit more structured. So just throwing that out there.
Very good.
Kaylyn, I think that's an awesome point. And I just to echo that, you're absolutely right. When we make these blends, the one thing we never say is, okay, how can we make a blend so that we can use up the varietals that will give us the most wine to make? You're absolutely, it's the quality. You're absolutely right.
Mhm.
And I will say this, Brett's not on with us tonight, but one of the stories he tells me, I hear him tell it all the time, is the first time that he ever felt like Dr. Becker was actually mad at him was fairly early on. And you guys were doing the blind tastings, and they were really kind of, everybody really liked 2 of the ones that were poured. And they hemmed and hawed, and he tasted back and forth. And then everybody kind of came to the consensus on 1, but the second was very close. And then when it was revealed what they were, we could only make a very small amount of the one that everybody picked. And the one that was a very close second, we could make a lot more of. And Brett goes, well, then let's just do the other one. And he said, Dr. Becker said, we will never do that. We are not going to let, pricing and supply determine what wine we put out. We're always going to put out the best wine possible. And he said he learned very quickly that, he wasn't joking when he said that. That wasn't just some sort of kind of brand marketing thing. That was really how Dr. Becker felt and how he ran the business. And he said it was really kind of awesome to see that. He was a little concerned because he felt like he had definitely stepped in some stuff right then. But he quickly learned that was for real and legit, and how we do things here, which is really an awesome story to hear.
Yeah, I'm
That's
pretty
cool.
sure I wouldn't want Dr. Becker mad at me. I don't know. Tingly sensation in the back of the head. Yeah.
That's where that reset button is.
Yeah, right. That's what Jody says all the time. Oh, your reset button. Oh, so, okay. I have nothing further to add to this cab other than I think everybody should enjoy a glass of it every now and then.
That's
And I think just one more point is that I would, my uncle Bubba Becker chimed in earlier about the tannins. I think this is another wine with just absolutely beautiful soft tannins. It's pronounced Bubba.
It took me a minute to realize you were talking about Robert.
Right. I was choked on that last. I was like, Bubba Becker. It's okay. I hear secretly Robert Becker enjoys thin crust pizza. So
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. Now we must go to the height of the art of winemaking, to the pinnacle of all things good and golden about the hill country, the Petite Syrah. Everybody wants to grab their glass and give it a swirl, a sniff, and a taste. And Joe, we're going to start off with your impressions of this, sir.
And just to have a little more womanly presence in the tasting, Emily, do you want to say hello to everybody?
Hey, it's my favorite doctor ever.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, it's our favorite doctor.
Sorry I had to miss all the fun.
Yeah.
All right. I would say Emily has the best palate of the two of us, but
She's got a great palate.
don't tell her I said that. All right, so the Petite Syrah. I get a little bit of maybe a little faint eucalyptus, and maybe even a little maybe a little bluebell at the very front when I first smell it. It has an interesting aromas to it.
Blue bonnet.
Blue bonnet, yeah.
Is that I don't smell ice cream.
Mm-mm. Blueberry. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Did I say
blueberry.
blueberry?
Oh,
You can clearly tell what's on my mind. Yeah, blueberry. Sorry.
blue on it. Cookies and cream?
I was wondering.
I was too.
I didn't
Like,
say anything, but I was like.
No, I'm sorry. No, my
No,
actually
blueberry
my
definitely. Yeah.
8-year-old in the background is yelling for ice cream. That's what happened. But I get a little blueberry there on the front.
Blueberries, yeah, I do get that. And that was something that it was hard for me to distinguish, oddly enough, because I eat blueberries all the time. But
Yeah.
Yeah, Petite Syrah has always been a perennial favorite of mine. The very first Petite Syrah that I ever had, a single varietal vintage of Petite Syrah, was from Bogle Vineyards. And this was back in the mid 90s and early 90s. And it was, Petite Syrah had almost always been used as a blender. And it wasn't until really being pushed forward by several growers that Petite Syrah, then you could find it at a small winery, and then it suddenly started. You were able to find it out in the marketplace. Several vineyards, larger vineyards, doing it, but it had been grown forever. And Joe, to this day, I am not sure the history of Petite Syrah. Are you? Like the development of it? I have been told multiple times, read about it, and it goes in one ear and obviously leaks out the other.
Yeah, I mean, you hear, you hear that's the. You hear that's the French varietal de Rief, but then you also hear that there was wasn't there an American clone where they were crossing Syrah, and that was their kind of reserve Syrah. They were calling it Petite Syrah, but I've just always heard it as as de Rief, the French varietal.
Yeah, well, and I had two, and it was it's not. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe that the French believe the Petite Syrah or de Rief is a Rhone varietal. Do they?
Okay. Maybe they. I'm sorry. You're right. But, it's not a Rhone varietal.
Yeah, but the American Rhone Rangers, the growers, the West Coast growers of Rhone varietals and stuff, they've included it in their lineup.
So, I'm sorry, the Rhone Rangers?
Yes, it's a real organization.
Okay.
I love them. I love them. They're real.
And
that's great.
It was all started by hippies. There's a Central Coast, California Central Coast organization for people who are producing Rhone wines, and to promote Rhone wines, which at the time in the American lexicon of wine, Rhones were not that well known. Because of them, we've readily more accepted ideas of Grenache, of Syrah, of Mourvèdre, Cinsault, Carignan, Coonois. Some of these varietals that we're growing here in Texas, thanks to the organization of other winemakers and the promotion of other wines produced from those. We're familiar, if you're familiar with French wines and you like to drink Chateauneuf du Pape, then you're familiar with those varietals, but you don't know them as single varietals. You know them as a blend of varietals. But Petite Syrah for us, to me, Petite Syrah is a standalone varietal.
Yeah,
it doesn't belong in a category of region where it's from necessarily. It's kind of an outlier, but it's just such a bold and brilliant wine.
It grows so well here.
It does.
Yeah.
When I reach when I am actually having a steak, I don't. This is going to be sacrosanct. I don't necessarily reach for a Cabernet. I actually go for the Petite Syrah. That is my favorite wine to have with just a straight piece of good grilled beef on there. So what do you guys get? Rebecca? Nose and flavor.
Sorry, I'm gonna need to try it again because it's really good.
Yeah. That palate down, huh? Yeah.
Really get a good sip, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's so remarkable. So Petite Syrah is one that I actually wasn't a wine drinker before I started working for Becker Vineyards. But I grew to be one quickly. And one of the things that I discovered, even in just kind of starting my wine journey, was Petite Syrah, because it's something that we do really well here. And we have Petite Syrah that grows in the front vineyard. And then we have a section actually that we planted in the wine club vineyard. Our second section of the wine club vineyard is Petite Syrah. And it's remarkable every time we make it. It has, when we first bottle it, I'm always surprised at how much fruit there is. You know, that fruit component up front, because it is a heavy, tannic, bold, in your face wine, but yet it still has some of those almost delicate fruit notes at the beginning. And I think that that's really impressive for a wine that is this big and this bold and this tannic to also have those softer fruit notes. And so that's what I notice immediately, is that it isn't a you know, one trick pony. This wine has all kinds of nuances to it that I really enjoy. It definitely has some plum. I get some espresso on this, on the nose. On the palate, I really get the tannin that I love, but it's a smooth tannin. Even though it's a lot of tannin, it's smooth. It's not a young green tannin. It's just a lot of really well-developed tannin, if that makes sense. And I really, really love it. It's almost got sort of a velvety finish to it that I really enjoy. I'll let somebody else talk about it now. I'm sorry. I really like it.
Talk away. It's awesome. So, Kaylyn? Oh,
I have a lot of passion for it. It is big and bold and beautiful and all of these things. For me, on the nose, I can never distinguish things like eucalyptus, because I'm working on getting that cultured. However, I'm not there yet, but I do get, you know, that hint of herbaceousness I can't ever quite nail down. Beautiful, like deep, dark fruit, like blue and black fruit. And of course, the hint of coffee, maybe chocolate. And the same things come through on the palate. And like Rebecca was saying, there's a bunch of tannin on this wine, but it's not astringent. It's not overbearing to where the wine is not pleasant any longer. And since we had this brief little cold snap, I'm pretending it is full-blown winter. Like summer is over. There's no more heat ever again. This is the wine I want. So yesterday when I was freezing to death in my home, this would be perfect.
I'm going to say that this wine probably would have gone extraordinarily well with that pot roast you made last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, or 2 weeks ago, I guess. Yeah.
Like it's on the list again for this week, because you know it's winter now. So I'll let you know.
Just to echo your point, you know, so in the summer we had, you know, we had by the pool wines.
Yes.
So you could make an argument that this would pair very well with the fireplace. That this would be
By
our
the
by the
fireplace
fireplace
wine.
wine.
I love it. I support
No.
this ever.
We need to put a fireplace by the pool.
Oh
Why
my
not
God, you
better?
blow my mind, John.
That way we can have wine down there every day of the year.
My family does love fireplaces.
This is true.
Don't let if my dad hears that. You know, my family loves fireplaces. That'll
I know.
happen.
You're telling me, wait a minute, Joe, you're telling me that there's not a fireplace by the pool?
Where? What?
That
There's a
surprises me.
there's a rotisserie barbecue, if that counts.
No,
Not even a fireplace.
that's crazy to me. Wow,
Huh. Yeah.
I'm surprised.
Some people are just behind the curve.
Yeah.
No, I just, like Joe said, his family loves fireplaces. I'm just
We do.
surprised that there's not a fireplace there.
Right.
That's next year's project
Yeah.
already.
That's it.
Jot
Nope,
it down.
absolutely. He probably just heard it, and I bet he's calling the contractor. It's like, oh, I should have had a V8. Hey. So, Joe, what do you get on this wine, sir?
You know, let's see. Certainly not Bluebell, but I think there's some nice plum notes in here.
Mhm.
A little bit of raspberry on the front palate.
Yeah, I got to get a little bramble and raspberry on there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, you know, there are a
And
few
the
people,
tannins.
there've been a few winemakers that I've been fortunate enough to meet and speak with that do Petite Syrah. Like, if I could do their level of Petite Syrah, that's what I shoot for. There are just some really,
Why aren't you doing that yet?
because I'm basically lazy. So you gotta deal with that one. Yeah, that'd be great. If I could just get off the couch, I'd probably change the channel.
I'm like, we're all talking about how wonderful this Petite Syrah is, and you're like, yeah, if I could only make Petite Syrah like these other people.
Yeah, well, it's good to have goals. Yeah,
Fair.
I admire their Petite Syrah is one of those flagship wines for me. When you taste somebody else's wines, if they do a Petite Syrah, it's one that I like to taste. As you can tell, it takes a lot of finesse and tannin management. It takes a lot of energy. Most red wines are fairly simple and easy to make on the outset. Or Petite Syrah takes a little, and Pinot Noir both take a lot more energy. The Petite Syrah here with those tannins, those beautiful, those fruit notes, you don't want them to lose in the background from it. So I actually did the one thing that you probably would initially think would be counterintuitive. I pressed the living juice out of this when it went into the press. I did a hard press to 1.5 bar on the hard press fraction to really get that extraction out of there and throw it in separately. We aged it separately and then blended back together later.
So this is very close to being enough to call it a state, but not quite. Is that?
So this year, the previous years we could call a state. This year it's not quite 95%. So in order to call a vineyard designate, you have to have a minimum of 95%. To be a state, you have to be 100%. So,
And this was how much? I mean, it was really close.
Yeah, so it was very close. So the Petite Syrah here is 93% Petite Syrah, and then there's 5% Counois and 2% Petit Verdot in there. So the Counois we do not grow here.
Right.
That's a shout out to the farmhouse vineyards, and then the Petit Verdot is a shout out to Drew Talent. Yeah, and there's actually just a touch of Drew Talent's Petite Syrah in here as well. So here again, every year is different. So you can't go into blending with too many preconceived notions. And I want to emphasize too many preconceived notions on there. I know we want to make a Petite Syrah, that's a preconceived notion, but you want to make as you do want to make the best wine you possibly can.
Well, our 2015 was a state, like,
yes.
and so that just kind of goes to show, even though 2017 was this amazing growing season, it didn't mean that our estate Petite Syrah was the best it could be all by itself. And I think that again,
17 was, this is 18.
Oh, sorry, 18.
Yeah,
sorry.
15 and 17 both estate.
But it's one of those things that just goes back to show you that it doesn't necessarily mean that the grapes themselves or this vineyard itself didn't do well that year. It just means it's better if we blend it with something else that year.
Right.
It means you start taste it here and you taste it with this, which one do you like better? And then you go from there. Yeah. It has nothing to do with a failure of a vineyard as much as it is it any better with what is accentuated? The other thing you look at too is like there's certain flavor components or nose components or body. You know, there's the integrity, the structural integrity, and the phenolic integrity. Those are the two points that I like to start off with a wine. And I'm not going to bore everybody with that because it's filled with a lot of minutia. But
I can just mute you. It's fine.
Yeah, okay, good. Keep going. So anyway. Back. But
and by the way, Rebecca, this is called mansplaining.
Hey,
I love to have mansplaining explained to me.
I had to, like 3 years ago, I had to go ask Jody what mansplaining was, and she just looked at me and said, "Keep talking, buddy." So yeah, in order to keep those two components in sync, sometimes you want to blend something else in there, sometimes you don't.
Well, and I like actually what you said is that it's not necessarily, okay, this needs something. It's, oh, look, this can actually elevate this even more. And I think that's a really good way of looking at it. I think that was a really good way of putting it, John.
Yeah, and I spent 20 years ago, I was in charge of all of these really bad wines. And the entire job was to take wines that had problems, that were faulty ferments, elevated issues. I was not allowed to touch good wines. My entire job was to make bad wines acceptable. And that was a PhD in fermentation in enology and problem solving and all sorts of things. And it was because I'm a little slow in the uptake sometimes. It took me a couple of years to realize, oh, this is actually going to play out much better for me in the future by doing this now. Yeah,
Right.
I don't always see it that way, but everything is related that way. And so it's constantly those lessons learned in judging those wines early on and later in their aging life as to where they will belong in the hierarchy of things. So
That makes sense.
there's my boring lecture, number 3 for the evening. We haven't done food pairings, which we need to do. Okay. So, and it's coming. So every week, so no, Kaylyn, so I won't start with you, but I am going to start with Rebecca. So
No,
Rebecca.
I said Kaylyn.
No, I know. See, you know what? My favorite cartoon, The Far Side. Did you ever see the one where it was the guy looking through a scope with a target, and there's 2 bears and one's pointing at the other one?
Yes.
So,
All right.
so Rebecca, all 3 wines. Let's start
All
with
3 wines.
Start with the Culinaria, the Cab, and the Petite Syrah. What would you pair?
Okay, Culinaria, I would pair duck. And you can say what you want. I think Culinaria would be fantastic with duck.
Ladies,
I agree, Rebecca.
The Canada Cab, I think that would be great with your pot roast that you made 2 weeks ago. I think that's what I paired with it when we did that a couple weeks ago, because it was phenomenal. The Petite Syrah, I think, needs like a ribeye. It needs like a fatty steak, maybe some blue cheese crumbles. Yeah.
My language.
Yeah. And some sauteed shiitake mushrooms.
Okay,
Ooh.
Joe, I think we need to make a trip to Manhattan and go to Gallagher Steakhouse. Just saying.
Come on it.
Hey, I've never been.
We'll hook
I'd
you
like
up.
to go. We have 2
Okay,
field
Kaylyn.
trips planned. Yes.
There you go.
Trips down. Okay, Kaylyn.
Okay, so for the Culinaria, I actually went on a food adventure to San Antonio, and I got some really fantastic takeout from a place called Smoke Shack. And holy smokes, no pun intended there. They had a grilled cheese stuffed with brisket, and it was beautiful and fantastic and everything I wanted in life. And so I think that would be my choice for the Culinaria. The Canada Cab. Oh no. Okay. Why am I drawing a blank? I think
Because I stole your
I know you did steal my food. You literally stole the food I make.
Totally stole your
Okay,
food.
so, no, I think it would be beautiful alongside some fish with soup, just something really rich and fatty that would play really well with the peers and contents, all of that. And then I am feeling for the Petite Syrah. I haven't been home since last Christmas. I'm very much missing home. And we always do at Christmas a huge smoked beef tenderloin that's it's beautiful and rich
Ooh.
and fantastic. And that's what I want from Delvin's in Amarillo, Texas. So
There you go.
I did for everyone. You're welcome.
And not to break any secrets, but there's a lady with your last name, and she's on here.
Oh, I
Yeah.
bet she's loving it. Hey, Mom.
Okay, so
And how about a cheers to another wonderful mother, I'm sure.
oh, absolutely. Here's cheers out to Belinda. Absolutely. So Joe, what do you think? What
I think
same food with
just
all
going-
3 with 3 different
Sure.
dishes?
So I think that I think we said this before when we tasted it, but I think the Petite Syrah would be a world-class pairing with Tom Perini's tenderloin.
Yes.
Now, yeah. it really-
I think that the Culinaria is such a fun one to pair. I think there's so many directions you could go in. There's a barbecue place down here called Southerly that makes some absolutely wonderful sauces and rubs that would go very well with the Culinaria. Culinaria also, I think, goes very well with Carne Guisada. And for me,
I'm so hungry now.
the Canada Cab. I think the Canada Cab would go well also with. I know you said it for another wine, but I think a ribeye or just a wonderful fatty steak would be absolutely great with the Canada Cab.
Well,
Or you could even do a like a raspberry chocolate dessert of some kind.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, whatever. Ooh, raspberry chocolate.
We like food.
We do.
Because I was
And the
thinking of
pen-
culinaria for gato fajitas. What do you think?
Ooh, yeah.
Look at you, Rebecca. No, the Petite Syrah, I'm just going to say off the bat, the Petite Syrah for a flourless chocolate torte.
Mhm.
That would be my one thing. And I actually have been known to use drink the culinaria with pecan pie, so we won't go into that.
I'm interested. Yeah, I might try that.
Right, but I'm thinking bluebell ice cream might be good too, Joe.
Do they make that?
I'm never gonna live this down. Darn it.
That's awesome. So Rebecca, what do we have online for next week's selection?
So next week, we're really excited about this. We've done these wines, but not side by side. And I think that is going to be really interesting. So next week, we have this package called the 3 Cs. So in 2017, we had all these fantastic wines that came in. We had such great harvests of a lot of varietals that we maybe got, but didn't usually get a lot of. And so we were able to make these 3 varietals that normally were blending grapes. And typically that's how you find them. And we made them all varietal specific wines. So we have the Carignan, the Counois, and the Cinsault. And so they're the 3 Cs. And then on top of that, when we make new wines, we always get to go through and try and figure out what we're going to do for the labels. And so the labels, we went back to some of our Tony Bell art pieces, and we picked 3 seascapes. So you can think of it as a 3 Cs, however you want, whether it's the 3 Cs because the varietals all begin with C, or it's because they all have these seascape labels. And so I think that's going to be a really fun pairing. They're all light to medium bodied reds that you don't typically see. They all have very beautiful color that you maybe might not associate with red wines right off the bat. And I just think it's going to be a lot of fun because they're just not your typical wines that you see all by themselves.
Yeah, that is going to be a great lineup. So somebody just asked, they're firing up the grill on Friday with hickory chips, sauteed mushrooms, and filet mignon. Which Becker wine? Wow, that's a. I'm thinking the Cab Franc. So.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, it looks like you got company.
Yes. And somebody broke into the Pringles.
Had ice cream?
Yeah.
And also, I think there was a face painting accident today.
I just maybe a little bit, but it's fine.
I don't know if that was an accident. That's just
Just show them your colors.
Art.
Show them your colors.
Oh, it looks awesome.
Oh, that's great, buddy.
I love it.
I love it.
They love it, Nicholas.
That looks great.
So that's awesome. Well, listen, everybody, thank you for joining us for another wonderful week. And again, we want to wish you all the best health and great wine for the following week. We'll see you next Wednesday with the 3 Cs and hopefully some more great banter. So
Cheers.
Cheers.